We are charting the higher octave with punk goth rock legend Patrick Mata, founder of the highly influential band Community FK, formed in 1978. Wow, that's a long time ago, and that's like the beginning of the amazing music that came about.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is back then, I just wanted to start a band to express myself. I didn't go, I'm gonna be a rock star, I'm gonna start a band. It's just hard, it's gonna sound kind of cliche, but it's doing me. Can't explain it. The creative process
Hmm.
uh ignites something in me and I have to follow through with it. And plus, um I I'm a real like a Bowie file. I love Bowie back, and especially back then. He just come out with Low in '77,
Oh yeah, great
which was the
album.
opposite of punk rock. He could have done a punk album and it probably would have sucked, but he did what he wanted to do. And so from that point, I figured, well, I'm that way too. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And the hardest thing was finding a drummer. That was the hardest thing back then, because everybody needs a drummer. So they're hard
Oh,
to find, one that's not doing anything. And that's when the band started.
oh, so it was right in the on the edge of that decade.
Yes, yeah, it was during the time of Joy Division, Killing Joke, all
Mm.
had just put out their first albums,
Oh,
and in real time, and I'm a fan and huge fan, so I have a good record collection and stuff. But back in those days, we used to be compared to Joy Division because of the bass out front and the synthesizer kind of noisy sounds,
hmm.
the minimalism of it. There's only three of us then, and so it's a long story, which I'm willing to share. Any questions come up, but it's a really long story. Uh, this year is the 45th anniversary of the second album, Close One Sad Eye, that has Something Inside Me Has Died on it.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
the video was released in 1985. Believe it was in August and 1985. So it's a 45th anniversary of those two things for
wow.
Community FK.
So this year,
Yes, this
2025.
is the year
Oh, wow.
2025,
Oh, how perfect is that?
1985.
Wow, that's amazing. Great.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it. We stood the test of time
Oh yeah,
without even
definitely.
trying. We just, I'm just doing my thing, just doing my
Yeah.
thing. And I love what I do.
So I know the little bit about the name and how it's with a K and then there's FK. I know a little bit about the background of that. Maybe you can tell the little story about that, how you could come up with a name for those who may not be familiar.
Well, back in the day, trying to get things started was really difficult if you didn't belong to a certain clique of people. I mean, no, it's still like that, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in Hollywood, you had the Germs and you had all those punk rock bands,
Mm-hmm.
Circle Jerks, all those bands. And because when we finally got a chance to start playing shows, um, we didn't sound like anybody. No one sounded like that. No one. And we weren't punk. They didn't know how to categorize us, so they could book us with other bands. And so people started to mess with us. They started to like just I can't explain it. It's a long story, but they couldn't. They're just messing with us, like trying to stop us in a weird way. I can't explain why, but so I guess we were so unique, I guess, and we didn't look like anyone else. Um, I had my look back then, and I was working getting it together, and no one looked like that except maybe the band, the Castration Squad, maybe. But and Christian Death came out also, but that's another story. Um, but because I felt like there's a term called, well, they're just the community fuck, they're just like a scapegoats, we're going to use these guys to just mess with them, and I mean, it was crazy. So I thought, well, I'm going to name the band Community Fuck, and just admit it, own it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we tried to get shows, and we had trouble getting the name on the marquees at the punk clubs. So I just took the UC out and just said, okay, there you go. And then put the abbreviations in there to mess with people like, well, what does that mean? Like furthering knowledge or furthering communication but I like the K's the letter K because it's so
Yeah.
abrasive looking, kind of guttural. It just looks hard to me. That's why I said the C, you know. So I just thought, oh, it makes it more unique. And to this day, there's no other band. You could never call a band that, you know. We
Yeah,
have
yeah.
our own name,
Definitely.
our own trip, our whole thing. Very individualistic. But
I,
that's why I changed the name is because the club booking people and the venue owners didn't want the word fuck on their marquees.
yeah. Community FK has been credited by so many people as shaping that the goth well back then it was the death rock, scenes.
Yeah.
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 How do you see the evolution now with the genre, currently with the with the scene now? It's a little different, right? In many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's um I champion all the young bands. You
Mhm.
know, I was young, and
Yeah.
had my band and you're getting you against the world, you and your little gang, because back then in my time, the um your band members were like a gang. It was you guys against the world,
Hmm.
And so that's how we were. But today, it just seems like it's making a resurgence, and
Right.
I'm glad to see it. I think it's really amazing. To
Yeah.
me, I think the death rock scene was one of the most beautiful fashion-wise scenes
Very,
I've ever
yeah.
seen.
I thought it was fashionable too. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, I noticed that other subcultures, right? They didn't really care to dress up. Not the way that I mean, we always wanted to look good.
yeah,
We have to look good before we go out. We just don't put on anything and just go out. We have to make sure, it takes time to do your hair,
yeah. It
like
makes a statement.
yeah,
Yeah, and I have that thing, like there was a saying in the '60s, you are what you eat, well, you are what you wear, you know.
right. And
I
you are
mean,
what you
it's a
listen.
flag. It's a flag. And back then, things started to formulate like tribes, like there was the punk tribe, there was the skinhead tribe, there was, the death rock tribe. Um, and things started developing quickly in the early '80s. You saw all kinds of genres starting to pop up and people melting into something else and transforming and morphing into something else. It starts to cross over because the more people that get into it, more ideas come in and it starts to take a different shape,
Yeah.
so almost amoebic in a way. So uh, death rock, which was really coming out of punk, and because the way I see it is like the Community FK first album, The Vision and the Voice. Uh, it's kind of punky,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not.
Right.
It's got noise, it's got synth punk on it. Just the way I wrote the songs, it just came out that way. But in '85, like when it finally got to the early mid '80s, it started to go towards goth. Goth popped up, and trad goth was the Batcave in England, in London, which I went. I went to the Batcave once, and
Yeah.
so it becomes goth, and that's death rock mixed with like I guess new romantic and uh, I guess some early electronic dance music that was kind of forming. Bands like Malaria,
Mm-hmm.
that threw
Yeah.
synthesizers in there, and they looked amazing. I loved the way they looked. They're an incredible looking band. But so yeah, I think the death rock thing is huge now. It's getting massive, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it's
Yeah.
a good
I
thing. I
feel
love
like
it.
I feel like there's so many. I mean, probably because I'm so involved in it now. I don't know what it is, but I see so many artists like coming about. I get people reaching out to me that I never heard before. They're like new bands and things like that. They're just coming out now. And maybe because I'm more involved now than I was back in maybe a few years ago, right? Because I have a YouTube channel and I do interviews. So I just see so many new projects coming out, I guess you can say. And different types of music. It's not just that that one sound. It's all different, they some synth pop and industrial,
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff.
that's great.
So, when do you think was the pivotal moment when you would say define your artistic vision? Your voice. Was there a particular moment in those days? Probably when you release Vision and the Voice, maybe.
Um, it's funny because some people say, oh, people never change. You'll never change, that kind of stuff. I don't believe in that at all. I totally believe in change and transformation, redemption, reinvention. I love all those things. It's very possible. Like a car, you can change the parts, put better parts in your car. So you
Mm-hmm.
just make yourself improve, you improve on yourself and take your identity, your fashion sense further as you can. Um, but in Community FK, after all these years, I mean, it's 45 years of the second album, started the band in 78. I was at like, I don't know, but how, 48 years now? I don't know. I can't count. I haven't counted lately. But we've had several peaks.
Mm-hmm.
There's been several high moments in the band's career, um, in the idea of it. The first album, like again, I was never the person to go, I'm gonna go get me a record deal. I've never liked that. Um, we got an offer from this label, Independent Project Records, that is Savage Republic. You know that band, Savage Republic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Bruce Leisher of Savage Republic. It's his label, and he was signing local bands, and he just said, he just came out of the blue and said, "We want to make a record. Want you on our label?" And so that was, yeah, it was a peak. It was a high moment and all that. But the funny thing is, and I guess you might find it weird, is going into this, I'm a very good singer and I'm a very good songwriter,
Yeah.
but but I had just come out of a scene of working with a very famous producer named Ken Scott. He
Oh.
did David Bowie's first five albums, co-producer. He's done a lot of people. He started with the Beatles as an engineer and all this stuff. Anyway, um, I just come out of that that scene, of these professionals and record label people and all this stuff. And he's a high-end producer, so he produced a couple of my tracks, my own tracks. But I was so into all kinds of things musical that when I saw the Sex Pistols, um, they came out of the magazines and things like this. It just freaked me out. I loved it. I loved it so much. I fell in love with it. So I cut my hair off. I had really long hair, and then I cut it off and started working on my transformation. I went, who am I?
Mm.
So when the first album came out, I was kind of searching, but I just let it go. It was like a natural thing. I just when we do rehearsals, songs would just pop out of me. Like, oh, let's do this. And I was lucky that I had two people that would follow me. Do, oh, okay, let's do it. Instead of fighting me, like, oh, I'm gonna do my songs. It was not like that at all. They knew I had this vision. I knew I was the leader, it was my band, all that. They knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So the songs are on the first album are very raw.
Yeah.
We didn't do any overdubs. I didn't
Um,
overdub vocals, any of that stuff. It's live in the studio.
mm-hmm. Right.
And
No, it's
so I
really
would say,
raw. It's really great.
you like that album?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna say that especially now with the increasing digital, music now that's coming out, with AI and all that. Sometimes I wonder how do you preserve that raw sound, right?
yeah, yeah. You have to make it, you have to put it on vinyl. You have to, and you have to go analog. That's the only way to make it sound that. Use 2-inch tape when you record instead of, digitizing the recording experience. And it's really expensive and it's really difficult to get into like a 1/4-inch tape studio. And, it's really hard to do that. You have money, awesome, you can do it,
Mm-hmm.
or a label behind you, but I don't have that. So that was a very, very momentous moment, momentous thing for me, when we were asked to go into the studio, real studio, and then we basically just played the set list,
Yeah.
and the tapes were rolling, and that's it, there you go. And so that was a high point, that was a peak, but I held back. My point is, I held back from as a vocalist. I was kind of shy. I'm a really shy person by nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so realizing that I'm going to lay this thing down and my voice is going to be on it, I held back. I didn't really, like, if you compare my vocals from now to then, like Holy Ground to the first album, it's two different vocalists. If you think about it, two different approaches.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you're different. It changed, I mean, time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, getting older, wiser, more experience,
Yeah.
knowing not what to do.
I mean, if you notice some people, when you notice like a recording of somebody talking, like back in, I found this recording I did many, many years ago. It was on tape. I listened to it and I go, I don't sound like that anymore.
Well, your voice a little higher
I don't know what it is. It's just
in
different.
tone.
I mean, it still sounds like me, of course, but it's just different. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the quality of the tape. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just change, like you said, change, your body changes, your voice is going to change. Like what you've done to your body, or some
Yep.
people
It's
become
very
like,
true.
I hate to say it, but look what happened to David Bowie. He couldn't hit the high notes anymore because he was a cigarette freak. He smoked constantly. I mean, like 3 packs a day.
Oh
That's going to
yeah,
alter
yeah,
your voice. It
yeah.
really is.
I think
So
everything changes in some ways. Whatever
yes,
whatever's happening in your life, and just whatever you put in your body, exactly.
yeah. So
So I
the experience back then was a really high moment in my life to do that album, and the fact that it's still being played to this day and people wanting it still,
Yeah,
um,
I know,
it really is a
some
blessing.
of your music is in these records, that CDs and records that came out, they're released one time and then it's in there like with a group of other songs.
Uh-huh.
FK. Yeah,
Yeah,
so what are some of I know you write the lyrics, right? Of your
yeah,
music.
I write it. I do everything.
Yeah.
I write everything.
Is there
Except,
a
I can't play drums, but I write all the song lyrics and things.
what are some of the, I guess, personal or societal struggles when you write a song? Are they based on personal things or or something else? Are they real life or outside of that?
Well, everybody has their frames of reference or
Mhm.
frames of references, plural, but individually, your frame of reference is everything you've absorbed, things that have bounced off you and things you've embraced. Um, in the early days, when I was writing my lyrics, I had a lot of angst, and because my situation as a person then was survival, and it was like punk was changing, and here comes Public Image, and there's Joy Division and all these young bands that don't sound punk, but they have that vibe, the aggro, the angst, all that stuff. But you say it in your lyrics,
Mhm.
and so it was pretty much like personal politics, sexual politics, social politics.
Mhm.
Um, that's usually something that will affect me personally. These days, it's more society, political uh, things that are I'm being touched by observation, and
Yeah.
so some of the lyrics, especially on the Cult Children of the Damned album and the singles, they're a little more from me, from my point of view, a little more society being affected by today's weird politics and how it affects the individual, me personally. So that inspired me to write the lyrics for the Cult Children
Oh,
material.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you think about it, if you read into them, you'll know what I'm trying to say. Lots being said there. I've never said this to anyone yet about that material, but and Community FK was personal, very personal.
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing political on any of those records, the 2 albums. There's nothing political on them.
Yeah. And so back in the when you first started Community FK, well, who were the members at that time? And then are they still with the band?
No, again, this is 1978, going into the recording of the album and release of the first album, Vision and the Voice, was released officially in 1983. So in that gap between 78 and 83, a lot was going on in my life and with the band. Um, on bass was a girl named Cece,
Mm-hmm.
and drums was Matt Chaikin, and Matt stayed with me for about 9 years. Incredible, probably one of the best drummers I'd ever played with in my life. Amazing drummer. And uh, so it was just the three of us, and we had a Prophet 5 synthesizer, and we brought that in, but we didn't want anyone to play it. We didn't want to sound where someone's changing the chords with the band, or any of that stuff. We use it for noise. We use it for background, for drone.
Hmm.
LA Weekly called us like a drone band for a while because we used it to drone. And the fun thing about playing early shows was that everyone would show up. I mean, it'd be skinheads, uh,
Hmm.
rockabilly, punk rockers. I mean, it was a lot of different types of tribes hanging out. Sometimes it would get crazy, and we would have noise with a synthesizer and do really cool, weird ambient stuff and play over it, just play. It was in the mix. So that went on for a while, and then finally it just got to a point where I was going to break up the band. About 1983, I was after the album came out. We played some shows, did a tour, um, and I just wanted to do more. And the bass player didn't want to. The bass player got into things that are just can't sustain a band. So I just said, well, I'm out of here. I'm out. I didn't know what I was going to do. So Matt said he'll stay with me, whatever I choose, or let's do something else. I'm in. So then I had a musician come up to me and say, well, why don't you be like the Damned? They have a family tree, man, that goes on for days, like a yellow phone book, Yellow Pages. Have you ever seen the Damned's family tree? Have you ever seen that?
You mean like a collective, something like that?
Yeah, of all the people that played in that band,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
amazing. It's
Uh,
incredible.
I know
So
it.
I thought about it for a couple of days, and I thought, well, all right, well, I'll give it a go. It's so we started auditioning people, and so the bass player named Kevin, he was in the band now, and that was going to change the sound because it's different people, different chemistry, different elements. You're going to
Hmm.
have a different sound. That's how it is.
Yep,
And
no, that's
so
true. Very true.
uh, I was looking for a keyboard player, and we were just a trio still, just new bass player, same drummer from the first album, and me. And so I saw this girl at one of the shows, and she looked like Louise Brooks, that famous silent screen actress.
Hmm.
And her name is Margaret. And I asked her if she was in a band. She goes, "No, are you a musician?" "No." I go, "Perfect. That's awesome. You're not a musician. You don't know how to play. That's killer." So I said, "Will you buy a synthesizer and then let me know and we'll give it a go." I didn't think she would. She buys a synthesizer, shows up to the rehearsal. It becomes the lineup for Close My Side Eye, that album. So all the material is completely different in influence
Oh.
and in the way it sounds different than the first album. It's because of the chemistry elements,
Hmm.
that developed.
Hmm.
So that's basically another high in the band. The peak was we went up like Mach 2. We went up, and put a killer engine in it, and all of a sudden everything's running really, really better than it ever had. Better than the first album, and energy and the vibe and everything. So it's two different things, but
Yeah.
a peak in the Community FK career.
So I know you guys perform with many bands, right? You
Oh
share the
yeah, we were
stage
the
with
go-to band in LA.
yeah, you share the stage with Public Image Limited, Killing Joke. And I'll just
Hmm.
mention them: Alien Sex Fiend, Specimen, The Jesus and Mary Chain, Sex Gang Children, Christian Death, Peter Murphy, Nina Hagen, Toys, Dolls, Lords of the New Church, Modern English, Gun Club, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Or is that the
Hmm.
birthday party? I'm not sure. Yeah,
That was birthday party days.
okay. Jean Loves Jezebel, Fresh for Lulu, 45 Graves, Lydia Lunch. Wow, The Virgin Prunes, Exmoy Deutschland, Clan of Zymox, and so many more.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
we were when bands would come over, they would request that we were on the bill. So you got to have Community FK. Can you get a hold of them? The first big break like that, being support for a major English band, was Killing Joke. That was August 28th, 1981. But that was the original lineup. See, that was the first album. Hadn't been released yet. We hadn't recorded an album yet. We were working that material that's on that first album, working in the clubs. And so we were asked, and it's funny because I'd been out that day beating the streets looking for a job. as a paste-up artist because I do art and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And back then it was pre-digital, it was hardcore typewriters and X-Acto knives and glue and this kind of stuff, right? And I was all up in that. I mean, I love that. I still do that.
Yeah.
Um, but so I came home and got this phone call from the booking agent at the Roxy, who also booked the whiskey. And she goes, I want to know if there's a night that opening night or the second night, if you want to open for Killing Joke. I'm like, no way. Are you kidding me? Because I used to collect magazines and read them, like the Face magazine, ID magazine. Um, oh God, what were the other ones? There was all kinds of British magazines that I loved and I used to collect. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew who Killing Joke was. I'm like, oh my God. And so I said, well, we got to have opening night. So we took opening night,
Wow.
and we had to play two shows in one night in those days at the Whiskey. You do the first matinee type show, clear the house, then fill them in again for the night show. You had to play twice on the night. It was unbelievable. I got to tell you, I'll never forget that as long as I live. That was a really, really
Yeah, I can feel
momentous event
I can
for
feel
Community FK.
I can feel what you were feeling back then by you telling me this. I just
Oh, it was amazing.
I know
It
the
was
feel
amazing.
when you have that wow, that
Yeah,
high.
we're meeting some of they're your peers,
Yeah.
but they're so good. You look up to them and you go, oh my God, no way, we're playing with these guys. They were amazing, amazing. And to this
So,
day, I'm still friends with them.
oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So when you started the band, it was in the LA area, right? In Hollywood.
Yes,
That
Hollywood. Yeah, Hollywood.
and then I know you went to England to the Bat Cave for a little. You went there, right?
Yeah, I went there.
And
Yeah, I was asked. There's a story behind it if you want to hear it.
yeah, yeah, I love that. That's the whole point. I love going back in history and just reliving these things. I've never been to the Bat Cave. I wish I did, but I'm in the Pacific.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're in a beautiful area of the world. It's beautiful.
Oh, we had a
I've been to Hawaii once. I did some recording on the
oh, really?
mainland. I did some recording there at a studio. It was called Broad Studios, and it was on the mainland. And I ended up staying at the Diamond Head Hotel or some touristy.
Wait, so you recorded a song in Hawaii?
Yeah, yeah, I
Oh,
recorded
really?
it when I was working with Ken Scott. See, we're going all over the place. And I have a long history of stuff, I'll tell you.
Okay.
But before Community FK, I was working with Ken Scott, and the musicians I was working with, they sent us to Hawaii to record, just to do a recording session. In those days, people used to do that, you know. So
No, yeah.
it was then I remember it was called Broad Studios. It was on the mainland. Next to Diamond Head was a hotel, Diamond Head Vista, and I stayed there. I don't know if it's there anymore, but
Well, there
Anyway,
Diamond Head. Yeah, Diamond Head is an area, a place here, and it's probably
yeah, yeah. But it was crazy back. It was nutty back then. It was mainly like uh I don't know, post glam bands, like post UK glam type stuff. Anyway, so I don't know, I can't really remember where we were. So what was your question?
I know we went all over the place.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it goes all over the place. I
oh,
mentioned Hawaii, then we go over to Hawaii, back in 1976. That was 1976 when I went there.
oh wow, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was quite a while ago. The scene back then was different.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think it was probably the beginning of punk at that time over here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. In Hollywood at that time, it was a very fast city where with subculture and I mean it's so historic anyway, with Rodney Bingenheimer and the English disco and bands like Led Zeppelin and all that stuff hanging
yeah,
out
yeah,
there,
yeah. That was the time of disco. So I think disco was kind of big here at that time. That's the 70s, so it was disco. But punk was emerging too at the same time. It was a different scene, of course.
yeah, different form of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
early, very raw. Yeah,
yeah.
especially in UK. I mean, the Pistols started in 1970. The idea came like 74, 75. Now that's how far back they went. We didn't hear about them till like 76, 77 when they finally got it together. So things are formulating back then in 76 for sure, getting more punk rock. The
Yeah,
Ramones, of course.
I was just looking at I saw this thing on Instagram. It was the grave of Malcolm McLaren. I think he's buried at what's the name of that London graveyard? Oh, I forget the name. There's he was no, I can't remember where he was buried. It was I should have anyway. I went to that graveyard, but I didn't get a chance to see his grave. I don't even know if he was dead, if he died that time when I saw that. But I was just so speaking of the Sex Pistols, Malcolm McLaren. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because um, that was discovering the Sex Pistols was a really big deal to me. I mean, it changed me. Like Bowie changed me when I was a young boy.
Hmm.
Bowie was everything. And my mom used to manage a record store. She managed a record store. She managed it for like 20 years. It's such a cool job. That's all she wanted to do was manage this record store for like 20 years, you know? And in my formative years as a young lad. And she brought home Hunky Dory. She had a
Oh.
promo copy of the Hunky Dory album. So she brought it, and it just came out. It was like 1971.
Hmm.
And she brought it home. I put it on my record player in my bedroom, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the material on that album is unbelievable, you know. And coming from the British invasion type scene, I grew up with that. I loved all the British bands. I just loved them. More innovative than I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
than
So
American bands.
Malcolm McLaren
So
was buried at Highgate Cemetery, and I was there many, many years ago, and I should have looked him up. But anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
you should have. You know, when you're there, you got to try and think of, okay, what's the most
I
important thing I
know.
need to see?
Yeah, I know. That was.
There's so much though, you know. There's so much. Yeah, I loved England. I loved England. But
Well,
yes,
I know you're still writing music. You were recently with you were working with Michael Ciravolo of Beauty and Chaos.
yes.
And that's the first time that we met when we did that interview with Michael. And Holy Ground is a great song.
Thank you.
And were you connected with Michael back then too? Because he was with
Human drama.
Human Drama.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Um, Back then, bands, like I said, bands were like a gang, and we were all tribes, different tribes. And I was pretty much in my own demi-monde of people, you know. So my scene was my scene, and wherever we went, we took it with us, you know. And he had his scene, Human Drama had their scene. So we never really hung out, but we all went to the same clubs, and that's where everything becomes more of a nucleus, you know, of a scene, was where everyone commingles together
Mm-hmm.
and talks or hates each other or whatever, you know. It's kind of it's fun, you know. Um, but we had done a couple of shows, and we played the whiskey together once, the whiskey. We were headlining, and that's the first time I think I met him was at that show. And then that club Scream, which was
Oh
an
yeah, I
amazing
remember that.
club. I mean,
I
there
used to
were
go there.
oh, oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I like the original location was at the that big building that's on St. Andrews. I can't remember the name of it. It's the Sunset Plaza, I think it was called, or something Plaza. Huge building, massive. That was a great location. Then it was on Grand Street too, downtown. That was an awesome place too. But we'd see each other hanging out at the Scream Club and you know and have a drink or something and talk. But we never really hung out or anything. So that's how we met.
How did you guys reconnected again?
He
In
when I saw that he was doing these albums with this concept of beauty and chaos, and I noticed that he had all these different singers, you know, different vocalists from different bands, and I was like, oh, that's a cool, you know. So I said, hey, I'm right here, you know, if you ever, you know, I'd love to do it, man. I'd love to do that, you know. So like years went by, oh, maybe as long as he's had that concept. Can't remember when the first album came out of Beauty and Chaos, but anyway, this is the fourth album. So between albums, you know, there was all that space. So we never saw each other. I never talked to him. And then he contacts me and I'm like, wow, you know. And then he made the offer to, would you like to participate? And I said, well, of course I would, you know. And so what was awesome about that was that he gave me full creative control of my
oh
what my
yeah,
input would be,
yeah.
you know. So he didn't tell me what to do. Then he just said the album is a conceptual thing. It's about angels. So if that strikes your fancy, go for it, you know. So that's how that happened. And I wrote my point of view. of an
Yeah,
angel, a
no,
fallen
it's a
angel.
beautiful song. Yeah, I love I love that song, and I'm glad you worked with him, and which connected us, which is great, you know. Because I used to
Yeah.
wonder who is behind Community FK. You know, I keep I used to play your music. You know, I was a DJ in a radio station. I still am. I do radio, of course,
Oh, cool.
and so I play all these bands on that time. You know, that's my time, right? I grew up listening to Deathrock.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. So your name would always I would play different bands and I mean, that's my origin, right? I'm back in the 80s when I used to have a mohawk and I used to dress, you know, the way that I am. I still do,
Oh,
you
I'd love to see that.
know. Oh, yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to
I
see some of
showed
those
you.
photos.
Yeah, you see, it's very death rock. Yeah. So, so I'm so glad that we connected.
Me too.
Wow.
Me too. It's great. Like minds, you know, I love that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll be friends, believe me. We'll remain friends. It'll be, it's
Yeah.
easy. We have a lot in common.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you're a Virgo, so that's good. You're in my 11th house of my astrology chart.
Oh, really? You know
Yeah.
what? That's really, I love that. Someone that was close to me as a friend gave me the Bowie tarot, the
Oh, yeah,
David
I
Bowie
have that.
tarot.
I have that Bowie tarot.
Yeah, I have it too. It's one of the most beautiful works of art I think I've ever seen, you know.
Mhm.
Amazing collection of cards. I mean, it's amazing.
You know, I should show you this painting that I bought from a local artist in Barcelona. I just bought it
Okay.
last year when I was in Barcelona. It's a painting, David Bowie. It's about this size. It's kind of big. Beautiful painting of David Bowie. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and I'm gonna frame it, put it up on my wall. I haven't done that yet. I haven't had
You
time.
should. You should. Things like that are
Show that to
priceless.
you. Yeah, it's a beautiful work of art. Just the way it was made and all that. Now, Cold Children, tell us about that one.
Okay. Well, the name was Dave Sexgang. He's my partner in that band. Dave Sexgang is the original bass player composer for Sexgang Children and one of the founding members. And we had met when we toured with them a couple times, and we loaned them our back line and all that stuff when they came over to play LA and the West Coast and all that. And so that's how we kind of met and kind of hooked up as musician friends and things like that. And one day I remember we were talking. We said, "Oh, we got to do something sometime," you know. And yeah, sure, yeah. And so it just went flipped right off our back. We never followed through. And then because of lockdown, when we had this lockdown thing, the pandemic and all that, um, we had time, you know. So I thought, well, we'll reach out, you know. So we reached out, and at the time, it was Dave Sex Gang, Terry, the guitar player from Sex Gang, and Raimondo, the drummer from Sex Gang. He was replacing the original drummer, and uh, he's on that live album, Vendetta, something, the Vendetta cassette. It's on ROIR label, the Roar label. And you can get that cassette, I think, still maybe on eBay or something. But that was the drummer then. Anyway, so I had three members of Sex Gang and me, and we were going to start this band. And we needed a name, so Dave just threw it out there. I said, "Oh God, okay, well, whatever, you know." And so that's what it was in the beginning. And then right away, it just came down to two of us.
Mm-hmm.
The other guys just didn't fall in place. And so Dave and I did all the recordings, with the exception of a few tracks where the guest musicians are Terry and Ray. They play
So,
on a couple of tracks.
so you both share the writing,
Yeah, Dave
the
and I
lyrics,
share all the writing. Yeah,
and
and
then
then of course, anyone who has input, they get their fair share, you know.
okay. So
So
this came out in 2021. The creation of this band
yeah,
2021.
it was formed then. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah, and then so all these years, Dave and I worked, I mean, our asses off to make those tracks, just he and I, and overdubbing, sending tracks back and forth, liking it, not liking it. Why don't we do this? Well, okay. Why don't we try that? Okay. Um, that's too much. Pull that off. You know, I mean, it was shaping this. Each track was shaped by Dave and I. Yeah.
Are you gonna release an album?
Yeah,
On
we have an album out actually.
oh,
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I thought I sent it to you, but at first I thought, well, I'll send you some tracks. There's some tracks from it that I sent you.
Yeah, yeah, I
One's
have
called
that.
Baby Kilowatt, and it's backed with Long Night and the Terror Cell Factory. Those are two amazing songs. I love those songs. So I wanted you to hear those. So I sent those to you.
You know,
And again,
I love how cult is spelled with a K, just like
well,
community.
that
FK.
yeah, that's his nod. Yeah, that's the nod to Community
Yeah.
FK because we couldn't call it Community Children, it's stupid sounding. So he came up with cult with a K and then
Oh, I love
children
it.
for sexy and
Totally
children.
love it. It's great.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
The album is really good. The album is unique, and every song on there is I have to say is really very good. We really put a lot of thought into everything, and um, again, some of the topics are about what was going on then in the world, personally and uh, as topic wise. You'll see when you hear the lyrics and read the lyrics. But yeah, there's an album out. It's called the Black and White album, and the reason why we called it
Oh,
that,
okay. I see
the
that.
reason why we called it that is because the Black album by the Damned, that showed the Damned
Mm.
experimenting with the studio, trying different things like
Uh-huh.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That track, such a great song. But anyway, that's the only album that sounds like that. They decided to go crazy in the studio and do other stuff, be more creative than just punk rock. So
Mm.
we nodded. That's a nod to the Black album by the Damned. And then the White Album is a nod to the Beatles' White Album because the White Album, every song is diverse from the one before it. There's not a blanket sound. There's not
Mm.
a one style. Every song is different from each other because that's what they did. They let themselves go creatively. So that's what we did on this album. It's every song is different from each other as far as genre and as far as vibes and approaches and things like that. You'll see when you listen to the album. It's very
Oh,
unique.
yeah, it's great.
I'm very proud of that record. I want more people to hear it.
Yeah. Well, we'll be sure to play it. You know,
I think you'll like it.
I really love how you spell your name as well. You have Patrik, and then there's
Yeah,
that K again.
yeah. I have a thing for that letter I told you.
Yeah, it's great. Patrick. You can't forget it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I figured there's David Bowie, Patrick Mata. You got to have the syllables in there, you know.
For
And
sure.
plus, there's too many Patricks with a C in it. So I thought I'm taking that out of there.
You gotta do your own
I'm
thing.
trying to be more unique.
Yeah, I mean, you've always been unique and independent. So,
I appreciate that. I'm glad you noticed.
yeah, of course. How can I not? Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
here's the thing. Here's the funny thing too. And it's just one of my little peeves about the scene, the Deathrock scene, things like that, goth scene, is there's too much sameness. When
yeah.
we started when the movement was
Hmm.
or scene was founded, everyone was an individual. We had our own look. We were like, I'm gonna do this. Um,
Yeah,
and
I know
you
what
try
you
to
mean. I know
yeah, you try to
exactly what you
express
mean.
yourself, yeah, the way you look. So you stand out. And so, but now everything is so accessible, you
No,
know.
I know what you mean. People might not understand that because I think you have to live through it to understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like this is the way I am.
No,
This is
I
the way I
know.
am. I'm not
Yep.
putting on airs. I
Oh no,
never
I
have.
know. I totally know. You're that's why I said you're an original. You're independent. I know exactly what you mean by the sameness because I can't put it in words, but I know what you mean. Because
Yeah, it's evident.
you have to
If you
live
look
through
around.
that period to understand what that means. Because back then it was even called Deathrock. It wasn't really.
No, it wasn't goth.
Yeah, it wasn't God. There was no. I didn't
There
know
was
about
no
the
term.
only goth I knew was the Gothic cathedral and the goth of the old days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Not
yeah,
not not Gothic rock. It was
yeah, exactly.
called Death Rock.
And back in the day when we first came out, that gig we played with Killing Joke, there was the music editor, main critic of the LA Times was there, and he reviewed the show. He didn't know what to call us. He'd never seen anything like this Community FK. So he called it Doom and Gloom. He just said, well, it's a doom and gloom type band. And I thought, oh, I'll take that. Okay. We are? Oh, okay. Um, and then the term death rock came out, and a lot of people will argue about who came up with the term, and
Yeah, I don't
it's
know.
not really important who came up with it. It's just the fact that there it is. and there's the bands, and here we are years later, and the scene is huge,
I know, yeah, and it seems to be it seems to be flourishing now, even more so. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know. I live in Hawaii, so what do I know, right? But I do
No,
see, no,
oh, there's a scene everywhere.
yeah, no, I see it on not just Hawaii, but I'm talking about like online. You see all these, events. I guess you see it more because of social media. I see
Hmm.
there's a lot of group pages, goth, industrial, whatever it may be.
Does that surprise you over there?
No, I mean, well, I there was a time and it was kind of like clubs were, all these clubs were disappearing and a lot of people didn't want to go out. I don't know. There was a time when that was going on. They say,
That's
oh,
how it is now. That's how it is now in LA to a degree.
oh,
A lot of
well,
the old
now with
school,
the fire, but yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of the
true. Yep.
a lot
Hmm.
of the old school death rock goth people don't
Well,
go out much.
I think people are doing are going to more concerts, maybe.
Hmm. And have podcasts,
Yeah, yeah, and that too, and doing it online.
like you and Mark
Yeah,
Splatter and a lot of my peers, you can see them and hang out with them online, so
right, right.
like going to a club in your own house.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people are doing that now.
Yeah. Well,
But I got to tell you, I'm hoping to tour this year,
oh, okay.
and I've got some irons in the fire. I can't really give you a statement yet, but there's some things brewing
Is that for
that
Community FK or?
I would yeah, for Community FK that I would definitely want to tour behind.
Oh,
And I'll
okay.
keep you posted on that. And perhaps we could do this again, and I
Yeah,
can make
yeah,
a statement
please.
about
Yeah.
what's going down.
Yeah, and I
But
hope you go to somewhere, well, in LA, San Francisco, or things like that,
yeah,
right?
typical places. But I want to go places we haven't gone yet.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think do it. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's a great
Um,
idea.
traveling scares me a little bit, I have to say, just because of the climate in the world. The global
Yeah.
climate um,
Just
worries
wait and
me a little
see.
bit.
It's gonna be.
But you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you don't know until you get there.
Still
So
alive. Yeah.
yeah,
You're legendary. So do it, I say.
okay.
I will definitely want to reach. I would
What about
definitely.
Hawaii? Is there a place to
Yeah,
play in Hawaii?
there is, right? You've been here. Yeah, you know.
I know, but now, I mean, now I was 76. Now we're talking 80,
Of
what,
course, yeah,
20,
there's a place
25
to
now.
play here. Yes, yes, for sure.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
You must DJ it.
what's that?
You must DJ it and make and appear.
Oh yeah,
And if
I
you
always
ever play
DJ.
there, you've got to be there
Oh yeah, well,
on the bill.
I will host the party.
Right
So,
on. Yeah.
so if anybody wanted to reach out, I know you're in Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
music is in Bandcamp, and you, like I mentioned to you, you have a great website. And
Thank you.
I will put the link on the bottom of the interview so people can just link on it. You can just click on it, and then I'll
Okay.
put the Kult Children that has a website of the as well, right? And
Yeah.
Community
Yeah.
FK, and I'll put all three
Okay.
links. And then because it's so detailed, I love how you put. A lot of people don't. Some people don't do this. They don't put like home, history, images, music. Just the whole thing. Then it's easier to find it.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that everybody knows because I hate to say this, but not a lot of people know who I am yet. But um, people that do discover what I'm doing, they write me. They contact me through Instagram, through Facebook Messenger. They're like, God, that's who you are. Or I've heard this song millions of times. I didn't know it was you. All kinds of weird things. But at least they finally contacted me and they got through the riffraff and through the rabbit hole and they finally got to me.
Hmm.
Um, I'm in that book about Jane's addiction called Whores, and it's the autobiography of the band. And there's a picture of me on page 8. And apparently I was an influence for Perry Farrell when he to start that band. But so he says.
Yeah,
But the thing is that I've had a lot of those fans of that band come and discover me. And they finally came to me. And I'm also in that book about Darby Crash called Lexicon Devil. And there's a mention of me in there because at one point I was going to be his guitar player in that punk scene. He was going to start a solo band. He'd gone to England and hung out with Adam and the Ants and came back with that mohawk. And he wanted to do something different. And so he was looking for a guitar player to replace Pat Smear, if he could even think of anyone to do that. But so he came and found me working at this clothing store called Fiorucci, which is like the punk hangout. It's a really cool place.
Oh,
And so he asked me to audition. So I auditioned and I started rehearsing with them. And then he got cold feet as he had a show, a debut show for it was called the DC Band, the Darby Crash Band. He got cold feet and asked Pat back at the last minute. So I was replaced by the original guitar player for the Germs, Pat Smear. But because of that book, I got people from that scene
mhm.
discovering me and coming to see who I am and find me.
Well, I think you're influential in that way because, I mean, you're a, if people want to know a little bit about the you know the history of that time, they should go to you because you know so much. I mean, here we are talking about it. You know
Yeah.
what went on during the in the 80s and the late 70s in LA. I mean, well, how do
Oh
you
yeah.
I mean, there's for the subculture, right? For the goth
Yes.
subculture, the death rock subculture. I mean that's what I mean. You have to really talk to somebody who's lived through that and who's been through that and knows all these people and these things. And you get around. You know so many. You're connected, I guess, to so many
Oh
things.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you see, underneath it all, there's me. Underneath all that, I was one of the very first uh to like break out from nowhere, just like the streets of Hollywood, formed a band,
Yeah.
bam, and here we are, 40 some odd years later, and I'm still here and I'm still producing music. Um, I'm still making art, doing all kinds of things, here on my own. And that's why uh, I'll have a statement to make within, I guess by next month, I should be able to tell you what I've been working on that I would love to go tour with behind. And
Hmm.
it'll be a big deal. And I'm excited about it. I mean, you have to sit on my hands, until I
Yeah.
can say anything. But I'll let you know. You'll be one of the first I let know, and
Yeah. I
we can
can't
do
wait.
this again. And
I'm excited. Yeah, we're gonna definitely do this again.
I'd love it. I love
Or
talking to you.
I know, yeah, me too. So I will put a link to Community FK, Cult Children, and your
And the
latest
beauty and
stuff.
chaos, we got to represent
Beauty,
that.
yeah, of course, of course. I'm part of the family of Beauty and Chaos as well.
Yes, you are.
I always tell
So am
Michael
I.
that.
And also my solo work.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
working on some solo stuff that is not that really has nothing to do with any of the other bands. I'm expressing myself with electronics and minimal electronics. Um, like, have you heard Madman? I did a version of the song Madman.
yeah, yeah. I see that. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so that kind of genre ilk of music that really like I call it avant-garde synth pop. That's what I call what I do in that uh, genre because it gives me a chance to not be bored, to experiment, and I have some synthesizers laying around and why not mess around, So I'm doing that and writing songs using only electronics, not using any other types of instruments. If I have to throw a guitar on there, I do it reluctantly, but like on that has to I'm trying to reach out to more people with my solo stuff too. So hopefully I'll get better at it and more people will come around.
Yeah. Well, okay, so since remember earlier we were talking about Community FK and that what that stands for, right? Community F. I don't want to say Community FUCK, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if Community FK were to craft a new manifesto for the current era, what would it say?
Oh wow. Um,
Because I feel like Community FK is kind of like something like that, you know? It's so like, I don't know, innovative, I guess.
um, how about any noise that fits?
What was
Uh, Go make some noise. Want to start a revolution? Go make some noise.
Yeah,
You
there you
know,
go. Yeah.
um, you can record in your own bedroom now. A young person can there's so much access now, That's
Yeah.
why there's no more record labels like major labels, legacy labels anymore. It's all independent, DIY. And that started in the I'd say like the late
Yeah.
70s, early 80s with bands
Yeah.
like Throbbing Gristle,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Oh, wow. There you go with
going
it.
against all convention,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had because of Throbbing Gristle, you had artists like Thomas Lear, um, and
Thomas
Robbie
Bear.
Rental, who did an album called The Bridge, and they did it in their bedroom. They didn't have the equipment, so Throbbing Gristle just said, "Here, take our equipment and go make an album, and we'll put you on our label." So that was the beginning of what we have now, which is way more high tech, you know.
Well, you know what? You mentioned so many bands, brought back memories. We got to talk about this again because like I said, you're like a walking encyclopedia
Oh, thank
of
you. I know a lot about things
music.
because just out of interest,
Yeah,
you know, it's part of my background. You know, it's my, like I said, it's my frame of reference.
yeah.
All that is in me, all
Mhm.
that from experience and from uh, absorbing, you know.
Yep.
I'm still doing that. I'm still collecting information, you
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. You're still doing it, and I'm really so happy to talk to you again. And we got to
Oh,
do
me
this again.
too.
You
Me
know,
too.
when you release your the next project you're doing, I want to hear about it.
You will. Oh,
Oh,
you will. I think you'll be happy about it.
all
It's the
right.
thing I'm telling you about that I can't tell you about.
Yeah, I know you can't tell me yet, but
No, not
I'll
yet.
be patient. I'll wait.
Okay, good. I think you'll be happy to hear what the result will be.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for joining me, Patrick
Yeah,
Mata, Community FK. All right. Okay, well, let me see. Thank you
yeah,
so
thank
much
you
for
so much.
joining me.